If you're an advanced player and you want to create more offense at the kitchen line, this shot is key. Today we're going to go through the backhand flick volley, which is a great way to attack from below the net and go on offense when your opponents see it coming least. A backhand flick volley is when I hit an aggressive volley with a quick acceleration of my wrist. This motion right here, where I'm taking my wrist from a hinged position and extending it out to here. That quick motion is going to allow me to get a lot of acceleration on the paddle, which means I can get a lot of spin and a lot of power with a very, very short swing. So that means that I can actually reach below the net and attack balls from my yellow zone. So that means I can attack from about 6 inches below the net, around knee level, and actually get some topspin on it so it comes down and it hits my opponent right in the chest. So it looks like this, where I come from about 6 inches below the net and I'm able to attack from that position right up, and I can actually hit my opponent right around chest level. So even though I'm hitting from below the net, I can still hit it pretty straight because this shot has a lot of topspin on it, which means you can attack from lower. In order to execute this shot, I need to keep a few specific things in mind. So one, I want to make sure that I'm hitting with an outstretched arm. I can't get any pace if I'm swinging with a bent arm in here. I'm not going to be able to connect with the ball. So I want to be all the way stretched out, and then I'm going to lay my paddle tip down so it's at about a 45-degree angle at the ground. This allows me to swing straight up on the ball. Now from here, in order to get this, notice that I have to bend my wrist down. So my arm is out straight, my wrist hinges down. From here, I'm going to accelerate by flicking up and out. So as I accelerate, my wrist is going to come up so that my palm ends up facing towards the net. Now the motion here is very, very similar to throwing a Frisbee. If I wanted to throw a Frisbee, I wouldn't do it like this. I wouldn't get any type of power on it or velocity. With that bent arm, my Frisbee's not going to go anywhere. If I wanted to accelerate that Frisbee, I would start with a straight arm and swing out. And then from there, I'm going to be able to get tons of power and spin. And once you have that swing down with your paddle arm, we got to remember what the non-hitting arm is doing, which is acting as a counterbalance. So as I swing, I'm actually going to shoot that left arm back because that way I can reach further into the kitchen. It helps to balance me out. If I don't do that, when I flick forward with all that momentum, I'm going to lose my balance and fall into the kitchen. So what I have to do is extend back so that way I can stay nice and stable and well balanced. Because if I don't, I'm going to end up falling in. And of course, you lose the point when you fall into the kitchen. So you actually want to feel your shoulder blades pinch at the end of that shot. And that's how you know you have a good, even balance. In the modern pickleball game, the serve is getting weaponized more and more. Players are hitting it harder with way more spin. So if you want to get the most out of your serve and reach the highest level possible so you can get 3 points, here's how you get maximum power. The first thing that's super important to understand is where power actually comes from. So when I'm trying to hit a serve, the power doesn't come from my arm. It doesn't come from this motion. It actually comes from the rest of my body. So think about it. I have all these muscles in my body. My arm is just one of them. So if I'm only using that single muscle, I can't generate as much force, as much power as I could if I use all of these other muscles together. So the power on the serve actually ends up coming from this rotation, where if I rotate my body, I can involve a lot more muscles and I can therefore get way more power. So here's what I mean. The first serve I'm going to hit here is with just my arm, and you'll see how much power I can get. I'm not going to rotate, I'm only going to swing by using my right arm. And that's pretty much as hard as I can hit the ball. I can't hit it much harder. That's the maximum amount of force I can create with this arm. Now I'm going to get the rest of my body involved. I'm going to rotate through the shot, and you'll see the difference pretty much immediately. I'm going to use my whole body to hit this ball as hard as I can. And you could see immediately there how much harder I was able to hit the ball just by rotating and using my whole body. So the main difference was instead of just doing this, I turned into the shot and I ended up getting my body weight behind it. So if you want to hit your serve that hard, here's what we're going to do. So if I want to hit my serve super hard, the first thing I'm going to do is set up my closed stance. So that's just gonna make it easier for me to rotate. You can serve in an open stance. Lots of high-level players are doing this these days. It's great for spin, but it's not as good for power. So we're just gonna talk about the closed stance today. So I'm gonna start with my paddle back, and as I swing through to the ball, I wanna involve the lower body first. Make sure I have a nice knee bend, and then as I swing, my hips open up. So the first thing I'm gonna do is rotate towards the ball. That creates some tension here in my arm. It starts to lag back, so that way I can snap forward. So as I open up my hips, my left shoulder opens and my right paddle arm comes through, so I can make contact facing directly towards the other side of the court. This way I get this additional rotation. As I hit the ball, I'm actually gonna pull my right foot off the ground and pivot into the court. So that way I end up with one foot inside the court, and that pivot gives me some additional force to work with. It's totally okay to step over the line as long as your foot hits the ground after you contact the ball. So I need one foot on the ground behind the line at contact. The other foot can be doing whatever I want, and it can touch the ground in the court after I hit. That's totally fine. The key thing to remember here is my arm has to be super relaxed. If I'm tight and I'm trying to muscle it, I'm not going to generate a ton of power, and I'm also just naturally not going to get a ton of rotation. I have to make sure that I'm loose. When you're loose, you can whip right through it, and you're going to get tons of power because you can swing the paddle faster. The looser you are, the faster you'll swing. So as I come through to the ball, I'm going to open up, loose arm, pivot, and when I finish, my chest should be facing directly towards the other side of the court. If my chest isn't facing the other side of the court, that means I'm not rotating. So I got to make sure I'm rotating and I'm finishing right to the net. One of the major keys to success with your speed ups at any level of the game, from beginner to advanced, is having a target and picking a good spot. A lot of players, especially at those entry levels of the game, are just hitting their speed ups hard for the sake of hitting them hard and hoping for the best. But when you do that, you're either gonna miss it or allow your opponent to counter it back super hard at you. So instead, what we wanna do is pick a good spot on your opponent, so that way they either, one, get it back with a weaker return, so that way you can put away the next one, or maybe because you're being smart, they miss it outright because you found a good target. So today I'm gonna break down the 4 targets that you have on your speed ups, which ones to choose, which ones maybe not to choose, so you can be hitting smart, high-level speed ups and winning tons of points to the kitchen line. When I'm going for a speed up, I have 4 main targets that I can pick on my opponent's body. I can extend their forehand out wide. I can jam the forehand into the forehand side shoulder. I can jam the backhand, so give them a backhand into their body, or I can extend the backhand. 2 of those are typically good spots, which means that if I hit my speed up to that spot, my opponent is probably gonna, at best, miss it, or at worst, hit a weak return. And 2 of them are typically bad spots, meaning that most players have an easier time countering from there. So if I speed up to that spot, I'm probably gonna get burned on the next one. The bad spots are gonna be extending the forehand. For obvious reasons, most players like to hit this shot. That's pretty easy for a lot of people. Also, jamming the backhand is typically a pretty easy counter. Most players are comfortable hitting this shot right here in the body. So those are the 2 spots I'm going to avoid. The 2 spots that I want to try to hit are extending the backhand. This usually comes back, but it's often a weak shot. So if my opponent gets it from here, it's not going to have a lot of power, especially if I'm playing an opponent with a one-handed backhand. I also like to jam the paddle side shoulder because it can force the chicken wing or make someone hit this uncomfortable shot here, which again is going to result in a miss or a weak return. So every time I go for a speed up, I'm going to pick one of these 2 spots to start and see what my opponent can handle. So you see there, I chose to extend the backhand and I got an error. There, I chose the paddle side shoulder, and again, I got another pop-up. So those 2 spots I know are going to be good spots. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is it all depends on the player, and you have to figure out which spots your opponent is not good at defending. Some players can't defend their body. They end up doing something like this and hitting a really weak body backhand. Some players struggle hitting their forehands, so you can extend them out wide and they're not going to get it. It all depends on the player. So you always have to make sure that you're being conscious of what your opponent is good and what they're bad at, and that way you're going to have a ton of success with your speed ups. But speeding up blindly for the sake of speeding up is almost always not going to work. One thing that high-level pickleball players are really good at is getting back slams, especially when the ball is getting slammed right at them. So when you're playing someone that has brick wall defense like Aaron over there, How do you beat them? There's one trick. When you get an overhead slam at a high level of pickleball, you want to angle it off the court. I'm going to show you how to do that. Power doesn't faze high level players. The better you get, the more you're going to win on your strategy and ball placement versus how hard you're actually hitting the ball. So when I'm playing a really strong player and I get an overhead slam, like you just saw there, if I keep slamming it right back at him, the ball's probably going to come back. So I have to figure out, okay, how am I going to be able to give him something that's much harder to deal with? I want to make him move, basically. So when I give him this overhead, it's going to be much easier for him to get it if I go right back to him versus cutting it all the way off the court. When I angle it off the court, him or his partner has to run all the way off the sides in order to get it. And that does a couple good things for me. One, it's going to put them out of position. So even if they do get it, there's going to be some open court for me to hit to. But it also makes it a lot harder to get just because they have to run sideways for it. So not only do they have to worry about blocking it back into the court, but they also have to get there to begin with, which for a lot of players can be pretty tough. So how do you angle the ball off the court? The easiest way to do it, if you struggle with changing the angle of your paddle, is going to be to use your feet as your crosshairs. So when I'm lining up and I'm sideways, my feet are going to be pointing in the direction I'm going to hit the ball. So you see right here, if I draw a straight line through my body, it's straight ahead towards where my opponent is. If I turn slightly to the left, now it's going to be easier for me to hit that angle. If I turn to the right, now it's easier for me to hit that angle. Which one I'm going to choose depends a little bit on which side of the court I'm on. So if I'm over here on the right side of the court, it's going to be easier for me to really cut the ball off on that left angle versus this right angle will be a little more difficult. But either way, wherever I point my feet, that's going to be the easiest way to control the direction of where I'm hitting the ball. So notice here for this one, I'm going to point a little more left, and I can hit that angle all the way off to the left. For this one, I'm going to point a little more right, and I can hit the ball over to the right. And there you go. That's the easiest way to learn how to change direction of your overhead. As you get more advanced, you can do it with your paddle angle. The ball goes where the paddle goes. So if I hit this way, it's straight. This way, it's left. This way, it's right. But when you're first learning it, that can be pretty difficult. So start off with your feet, and that's how you're going to create a super sharp angle. If you're an advanced pickleball player and you want to get the most out of your kitchen game, you have to learn these advanced footwork steps in order to make sure that you're covering the court well and creating enough space to be able to create offense at the kitchen line. The first footwork step that we're going to talk about is the drop step. The drop step is when we move 1 foot off the line like this in order to create more space. So here I go onto a 45-degree angle, and what this does for me, it's going to allow the ball to come up a little bit more so I can hit it out in front, have more time, and impart a little bit of topspin on the ball if I'm looking to go on offense or if I'm looking to go on defense. Just give myself a little bit more time to hit a good shot and let the ball come up to the apex. There's a couple different times that we use this step. The one time is if I'm in a dink rally and I'm looking to get the ball out of the air, but I realize I can't quite get it, I'm going to use that drop step to create a little bit of extra space. So here's how it would look. See how here I can feel comfortable taking these shots out of the air, but if there's one that I can't quite reach, I'm going to use that drop step to come back and create a little bit of extra space. I'm always looking to take it out of the air where I can, but if I can't, there's no problem in taking that step back in order to hit a better shot. A lot of coaches will say, don't step back off the kitchen line. That's something that we hear a lot. And what that means is don't step back with 2 feet off the kitchen line. Taking 1 foot back is fine. If I come back to here and I push off that outside foot that's back, I can now come right back up into my ready position and be ready for the next shot, especially if that means I'm going to hit a better shot. So when I come to this position, I'm even going to be able to have a much better opportunity to impart a little bit of topspin on the ball. So if I come back from here, create my space, now I can swing up on a ball that I might not have been able to if I didn't step back. Because from here, when I'm short hopping that ball, I can't really create any spin on it. If I do, I'm probably going to hit it a little bit too high and miss. So I can step back and then swing through in order to hit a more aggressive dink. This is something that's changing a little bit in pickleball. Nowadays, players are stepping back off the line a little bit to create a little bit more topspin. You see a lot of the top pros doing this in order to go more on offense when they're at the kitchen line, in positions that in the past they might have been a little more defensive on. Remember, if you're going to hit a better shot, there's no problem in taking 1 step back off the line. We don't want to hug the line just for the sake of hugging the line. If that means we might hit a weaker shot. The other time we use the drop step is when we're pulled far out wide and the ball is deep. So if the ball comes to us deep, we want to take it out of the air. So if it comes right to me, I'm always going to lean in and hit a nice reset, taking that ball out of the air. But if this shot now comes to me wide, I can't reach and take it out of the air. It's going to be a pop-up. So what I have to do is let that ball bounce. Now when I slide out wide and let it bounce, if I don't move back, I'm going to be taking it off the short hop, which is going to give me the same effect. I'm probably going to pop that ball up the same way I did when I looked to take it out of the air. So what we have to do is use a drop step to create a little bit more space. So when that ball is wide and deep to that corner of the kitchen, I'm going to slide over and then I'm going to step back with my outside foot in order to create that extra space here. So for me, I'm hitting a backhand on this side. So I'm going to slide back. My left foot now comes back. I create that 45-degree angle with the court. And from here, I have more room for the ball to come up to the peak. And I can swing through and then recover right back to my ready position in a neutral stance. So we'll look a little bit something like this. I get that ball out wide, I step back, and I swing through. So I'm creating that 45-degree angle with the court in order to make sure that I have one foot up so I can push off and slide right back through to my neutral ready position. The next advanced footwork step that we're going to learn is the crossover step. We're going to use this on the backhand side. The crossover step is when I take one foot over another to make a full turn in order to hit the dink. I'm not going to use this on the forehand side. You may have heard, don't cross your feet. That's a myth. We can cross our feet on the backhand side, but it is true we can't cross on the forehand side, and here's why. When I cross over on my forehand side, two things happen. One, my paddle shoulder comes back, so it's not going to give me an extra reach. If the ball's wide over there and I cross over this way, my shoulder, where my paddle is, goes over there, so it doesn't give me any extra reach. I can reach that same spot whether I cross over or not. On my backhand side, I can cross over and get a ton of extra reach. So it's going to allow us to reach balls that we might not have otherwise been able to reach. The other thing is, when I take the paddle back on that crossover step, it naturally creates a backswing. Coming from here to here on my forehand brings the paddle further back. I'm not moving my shoulder at all, and you notice it's all the way back here versus out in front. Now when I cross over on my backhand side, it doesn't create too much of a backswing. It takes it right back in front of my body still so I can swing forward. So I'm probably not going to overhit that ball. I might overhit it on the forehand side because I'm creating a much bigger backswing. I have to swing forward from all the way back here. So we're not going to do it on the forehand. We're only going to do it on the backhand. Here's when we do it. When we have a wide dink that's short, that's when I'm going to use my crossover step. So I'm not going to use it on the deep one because the deep one, we're going to use the drop step. But on a ball where I'm not going to have to back up, I can use that crossover step to get a little bit of extra room. This is going to allow me to get a little bit more aggressive. If you have a one-handed backhand, you can create a little bit of topspin off of it. You can see on these shots, I'm coming under the ball and up to impart a little bit of topspin and hit a much more offensive dink. And so the key is we just have to make sure that we recover back to our ready position after we hit it. So I can't cross over and then hang out here like this. Let me get blasted on the other side. So I have to make sure I hit and then recover right back to that neutral ready position. I see a lot of players get stuck not recovering. So make sure that as soon as you hit the ball, you recover back to ready. So that way you're going to be ready for the next shot. Today, I'm going to share with you one pro tip that will immediately take your resets to the next level. If you feel like you sometimes have trouble getting back up to the kitchen and defending off a hard reset, this video is going to be for you. The key has to do with where you're aiming your resets. All of your resets should go through the middle of the court. A lot of players aim down the line with their resets, and that's where a lot of the errors come through. So we're going to talk about it. First, you have 2 extra inches to hit the ball through the middle of the court to get it over the net. The net is 36 inches high on the end, and it's 34 inches high in the middle. Okay, 2 inches might not seem like a lot, but think about it this way. Have you ever had a ball that hits the tape of the net and falls back on the other side? Of course you have. That happens all the time to everybody. Now that's the difference of 2 inches. A ball that hits the net right here on the tape and falls over, or hits the net on the tape and goes over, well, that's clearing the net if it was 2 inches lower. So 2 inches actually makes a much bigger difference than you would think. So that's the first reason why we're going to take our resets through the middle, because that extra 2 inches is going to give us a lot more room to hit the ball. But even if we're taking the height of the net out of the equation, we have more room for another reason. When I'm hitting a reset through the middle of the court from one box or the other, I'm going to have a greater distance for the ball to fall into the kitchen. When I go from the mid-court straight ahead to the kitchen line, that's one straight line that's going to be parallel with our sidelines. So kitchen line to baseline, that's going to be 29 feet. 29 feet from my baseline to my opponent's kitchen. When I make that line a diagonal line to turn it towards the middle, because it's now a diagonal, I'm going to have more distance. So I get a couple extra feet where the ball can then drop into the kitchen. A couple extra feet, that might not seem like a lot, but that could be the difference between the ball landing here and getting slammed by my opponent out of the air, or landing up here where it has to bounce and my opponent can't attack it. So think about it that way. A couple inches, a couple feet might not seem like a lot, but when you add it in a game, every inch counts.